interested in, do a lot of research on it, and create this project. And then part of that project is that I have to present it to my wonderful colleagues. So that's why I'm here, taking up some of your time and talking to you on this Monday afternoon, so close to winter break. Thank you for giving me your attention. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Sorry, I skipped that. Okay, so I'm hoping to make this a little bit more engaging, so it's more of a discussion, not just me like spitting facts at you. So in a minute on the next slide, there's going to be a number for you to text, so just grab your phone, go ahead and text that number, and when you're ready, just look up at me so that I know we can keep moving. So just text all caps, Diane Hobbs, 282 to the number 22333. Thumbs up if you're ready. Okay, great. So on the next slide, I have a statement. I'm going to read it to you. And as I read it, I want you to text the first thought or phrase or small sentence that comes to your mind. And then I will pull up the poll so that we can start seeing everybody's responses. So I think I've activated it. Our students begin school having only spoken their native language at home and are expected to learn to read and write in English at the same rate as their native English-speaking peers. So I'll read it again. Our students begin school having only spoken their native language at home and are expected to learn to read and write in English at the same rate as their native English-speaking peers.
And you're wanting us to
just respond with a phrase or a thought, a question, a small sentence, the first thing that comes to your mind. You can respond as many times as you want, there are no limits. I'll give you like 1 more minute to respond. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of similar things coming up. These are all things that I also felt when I started learning about this as I started my education at Lipscomb. Yes, we need more support. It's ridiculous. It feels overwhelming. It's not fair to them at all. And so that's why, let me show you guys what I thought of when I first heard this phrase. The first thing that I thought was, there has to be a way to change this. So I did some brainstorming, and I began to wonder about including students' native languages in their early reading instruction. I thought that if we were to give them sort of those scaffolds, those supports, as they were building their foundation, then they would be able to meet those benchmarks that they're expected to meet. So I had to look at some research that was out there. To be quite frank with you, there's not many studies on the topic at all. But let's look at what I did find. So before we jump in, I wanted to start just to kind of give you a snapshot of our EL population, which you guys are very aware of this. But two researchers called Pan and Nettles They said that in 2004, 2005, that year, approximately 5.1 million, or 10.5% of the U.S. student population were English language learners. And between the years of 1995 to 2005, Tennessee's EL student
The
population.
teacher has already made their way to the deal. You have not. Please do it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. The EL population grew 369.9%, which is insane. And it also showed that EL students are enrolling in large school districts and attending the same urban schools. So there is a high concentration of this influx of EL students all in the same areas, and it just shows that it's really important that these students are supported so that this achievement gap is closed. Oh, sorry. Okay, so here's some of the first findings of my research. I wanted to look at why there's such a huge gap in achievement between our EL kiddos and our native English-speaking kiddos. I found some research by someone named Slavin, and excuse me if I pronounce this incorrectly, Schwang. It was called their Synthesis of Language of Reading Instruction for EL Students. It notes that the gap actually did narrow between the years 1994 and 2009, which is a long time ago. And then a study by Diane August, Maria Carlo, Cheryl Dressler, and Catherine Snow suggests that vocabulary comprehension is the reason for this gap, which is something that we talk about all the time. Make sure that you are building a vocabulary with your students. So there was a study of a 4th grade class, and it showed that 4th grade EL students know fewer English vocabulary words and less depth of meaning of those words than their monolingual English-speaking peers. They mentioned that from the age 4 to age 8, students' recognition of cognates increases dramatically. And this is the foundational time that we need to be building those vocabulary knowledge of these students. So at this point I thought, okay, so strong vocabulary instruction is the answer. That's what's going to help close this gap. But I'm noticing that it's not closing the gap, because we are focusing really heavily on vocabulary instruction, but these kids are already starting so far behind. So I thought, okay, what's the next thing that we can do? What's the next thing that we can do to try and close this gap? But before I move on to my next thought, I thought it would be interesting to take a poll, because I know a lot of times I haven't felt very strong in my vocabulary instruction, because there's only so many times I can show them an apple and say, this is an apple. You know, there's a depth of meaning sometimes that I'm not always getting at. So I was wondering how strong you all felt in your vocabulary instruction. So here's the options. In a minute I'll activate the poll. So you'll respond with an A, very strong, B, strong, C, not very strong, or D, I could be better. You don't have to text the number again, you're already on it on that text thread. Oops, okay. So as soon as I activate it, you can begin responding, and we can see how all of you all feel about your vocabulary instruction. Okay, so I'm seeing most of us feel like we could always be better at our vocabulary instruction. And I feel like there's a reason for that. A lot of times we're just focusing on the simplistic, this is an apple, this is what an apple looks like, this is how you would use an apple in a sentence. But there's a depth of meaning aspect that you can't always get when you're just teaching the definition of a vocabulary word. So, as I continued researching okay, so I talked about that, more than just knowing the English word for apple. So that's the struggle for me with building my students' vocabulary. There's a lot of nuance in vocabulary that our students aren't always getting when it's just sort of that straightforward teaching of what the word apple, or what the word like, or what the word chair means. For example, the apple of my eye, or the big apple. it gets really confusing, it gets convoluted. So I found a study by a guy named August in 2009, and he referenced another study by a person named Perez. They looked at 75 third grade students, all Spanish speaking. They received 20 minutes of vocabulary instruction each day. One class focused on punctuation and definitions, very simplistic. The other class focused on compound words and syntax. And then the third group focused on, they actually designed a matrix that showed word relationships and predicted their meanings. Which class do you think scored higher on their assessments? The third group, that's right. The third group scored higher on their assessments. So at the completion of this study, the students who completed the word matrix, I read that already. Okay, so it's clear that when the depth meaning of words is the root of vocabulary instruction, the students are more successful in their second language acquisition. I thought, okay, so vocabulary instruction is a reason for this gap. If we focus on depth of meaning, that's what's going to get our kids moving. But then I started looking at the possibility of bilingual instruction. Don't worry, I'm not asking you all to learn all of the languages that there are in the world. But it's really interesting that in the 1970s and 1980s, bilingual instruction was actually the favored form of instruction for EL students. And then it started to kind of transition into a transitional bilingual instruction, where for the first year up until second grade, they were instructed primarily in their native language, and then started to transition out of it as they moved into the upper grades. And then there started to become some opposing views on bilingual education. Some supporters of bilingual education argue that students' reading proficiency in their native language directly correlates to their proficiency in reading English. They also hold the view that teaching an EL student to read and write in their native language first saves them from a sense of failure, which I see a lot in my classroom. A lot of my kids have a sense of failure immediately because they can't do the things that the standards are asking them to do because they don't have the vocabulary and they just don't have that language that they need. So I've seen that a lot in my classroom. They have a sense of failure. And then opposers of this, of bilingual education, say that it kind of delays English acquisition and it isolates students into a different class away from other English-speaking students. And I can see pros and cons for both sides of it, for sure. I also thought bilingual education was kind of like what you do in high school when you learn Spanish, you have a Spanish class. I thought it was all your other content areas are in the language that you speak, and then you have a separate class where you learn to speak that other language. That's what I thought when I thought of bilingual education, or what a bilingual school would look like. But actually, it's quite different. There are 3 different types of bilingual education, actually 2. First one is transitional, like I mentioned earlier, when they begin their elementary years, primarily learning content in their native language, and then they kind of transition out of it later on. Partial is when they begin with both. They have 2 or 3 days a week, or just sections of the day where they're using bilingual education, where they're using their native language to learn content areas, and then they move to solely English at other parts of the day. Like I said before, what can you do about it? I'm not asking you to learn all the languages. I know that is completely impossible. But something that I thought we could do is try to incorporate the SIOP method of teaching our EL kids, which I'm sure most of you guys have heard of this method before. It's something that is taught in all EL classes all the time. It basically stands for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. The goal of this model is to make content comprehensible for EL students, making sure that lessons are really engaging, focusing on those language objectives, which we hear about all the time. They're always like, make sure that you write your language objective. We do that really well at Cole, I feel like. We are really good at making engaging lessons. We're really good at making sure that we use those language objectives. We have great EL support. I think that another option that we could look at would be reading response journals. And in these reading response journals that we could send home with parents, we we would have a Spanish translated text that is leveled in that reading response journal so that the parents could read that Spanish text with their kids. So that the kids could use their language that they already have, the strategies that they're learning in class, to decode those Spanish words. And if we could gain access to other languages of level text, that would be amazing. But right now, the only ones that I've been able to find are Spanish. I just think that it would be a really doable option for us, since we can't all learn a million different languages. So, the one that I did find was Reading A to Z. It is a subscription, but if you borrow all of your family members' emails, or use all of your emails, you can get a bunch of months for free. And they have Spanish translated level text on there that you can print off. So just do a bunch of printing in 1 month, or a bunch of printing in the months that you have all of your friends' email addresses for. You could have those level texts and send them home in reading response journals. Now, as I continue learning more about this and developing my resources, if you would like me to send you the template for my reading response journal and the help sheet for parents to question their students and engage their students and write with their students at home, I would be completely willing to send you and share you that information as I develop it. There is a survey on the chairs that I've left for you at the bottom if you would just indicate if you would like me to send you those resources as I develop them. And then the very last thing, thank you so much for listening to me. This is very much a work in progress. I'm still very, very new at this, as you can tell. If you would just fill out that survey and just leave it on the chair, indicate at the bottom if you want those resources. Thank you so much for listening to the ramblings of a very